This is John Kosis, Broadcast and Media Relations Manager for the Columbia Fireflies, and you're listening to the All About Nothing podcast.
This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is brought to you by GOT Sound Studio. GOT Sound Studio offers a variety of experiences: music, voice and instrumental recording and production, video and still photography. GOT Sound Studio has all of your media needs met. Owned and operated by Dominique Stewart, the Neek the Geek, experienced artists as well as up-and-coming will find everything they need to create. Bring your media needs to one of the most talented producers and engineers in the business, Neek the Geek. You can find details by visiting gotsoundstudio.com or calling 803-243-2302. You can also find links in the Friends of the Pod section of our website. Visit theallaboutnothing.com.
The All About Nothing podcast
may have content and language
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
It's Monday, February 26th, and this is episode 195 of the All About Nothing podcast. I am Bear Gruber, and this week my guest is Dr. George Ackerman, PhD, JD, MBA, and MS. Those are all of his titles. I'm humbled to have gotten to sit down with Dr. Ackerman, and I won't give away his story just yet, but I'll preface this conversation by saying what is to come. He is the son of Sharon Riff Ackerman, whom lost her battle to Parkinson's disease on the 1st of January in 2020. In honor of his mother's strength, he created a website to help spread awareness for those that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, for those that haven't, and for those that are supporters of finding a cure, but mostly spreading awareness about the disease. So the website is togetherforsharon.com. And we'll welcome Dr. Ackerman to the show here in just a couple minutes. Before that, let me get started off by saying thank you to all of you listeners, to the supporters of the show. Without listeners, it's really just me speaking into the void of nothing. So thank you for listening and supporting the show. If you can, I have two requests. Please follow the show, share the show. Others are more likely to listen and subscribe if it's something that's been recommended to them. So if you find the show on social media, please follow us and like the show. Please comment, give us feedback. It sounds like I really made like 3 requests in there, but as long as you're not keeping tally, we're okay. I also want to thank my close friend and fellow podcaster, Ami of the show Welcome to Wonderland, for letting me be her first guest in her expanding format of the Wonderland pod. I think our conversation about voting, the history, and the rules, as well as the security behind voting, was a really good conversation that didn't really beat on the political drum, which you all know me and know that I need that fix sometimes. But if you haven't heard it yet, you can go back and listen to it. It was the episode previous to this one on All About Nothing podcast, or you can go back and you can listen to it on Welcome to Wonderland, the pod. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it with Dr. George Ackerman. All right, welcome to the All About Nothing podcast. Of course, I'm Bear Gruber, and I am joined this week's episode with Dr. George Ackerman. He is originally from Brooklyn, New York. He is residing in Florida now. So, George, thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you, and all your viewers. Means a lot being able to just meet you, talk to you, and again become not just friend but family in this fight against Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say, so Dr. George Ackerman with a PhD, a JD, an MBA, and an MS. I know PhD, I know MBA. What is JD and what is MS?
You also forgot police officer.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to get into that too.
I'd love to tell you, my big thing is I go by Sharon's son, because that's, and I wouldn't be the man or even accomplish those educational, academic achievements if it wasn't for my mother's sacrifice, and we'll hopefully get to that. The JD is just a Juris Doctorate. I'm an attorney in Florida and Washington, D.C., and which was the other one?
Oh, the MS. Too many.
MS. It's funny. Master's in Science of Sports. I actually worked a lot. I'm a big into basketball athlete. I interned and worked my master's at a college basketball team. But my dream was really, after seeing Jerry Maguire, the movie, to do what he did. So when I was younger, I literally took my little diploma, went to the big 4 major South Florida sports teams, the Panthers, Marlins, Heat, and what was the other one? And the Marlins and the Heat, and the last football is Dolphins. And walked in as a youngster, spoke to people, and they just offered me vending jobs, which is nothing wrong. But I had a law degree, and I kind of just decided it just unfortunately didn't know the right people. Luckily, my career shifted towards law enforcement, and I dedicated most of my life, and I still do, to helping victims of crime. And I kind of ended up doing my dissertation and having an honor to sit with uh, about 40, 50 mothers, it was African American mothers who lost their loved ones due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. And my career, my life was really dedicated because we have victims, and sadly sometimes they're not with us anymore, but then the family members become secondary victims through the system, and they're forgotten. So I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless, and in a way which leading to today my advocacy for Parkinson's awareness. In my opinion, just until last year, I feel that individuals diagnosed with Parkinson's and caretakers have been voiceless. Our system of medical and government has really, in my opinion, not to say a bad thing, but neglected them. And again, sitting here, we're at a time through history, and hopefully we'll touch on it. But last December 2023, the Congress finally passed the first bill ever called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease, and that's really making history. And what it would do is it'll help fund new research. It'll help early diagnosis. It'll spark new models for care. Also address the disparities throughout society that individuals might not be able to get attention, and also help awareness, but really end the disease through a cure. So that's kind of where I correlate my prior life to what my mission is today, is to end Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, and let's talk about that some, because what you and your family done has begun. You've created a foundation in honor of your mother, Sharon Riff Ackerman. I'm sorry.
Let me stop you for one
Oh,
minute,
sure.
even though you're the boss here. It's That's an important thing that you mentioned. We're not a foundation. I'm
Okay.
just a son. I'm one person. I'm a son who lost their best friend due to this disease, and I feel we were really, and her robbed of her beautiful life. She was only 69, and even 15 or 16 of the last years were not really living. And so I didn't want a foundation. We don't accept money. The
Okay.
only thing I do accept is that I want everyone out there, whether you're fighting Parkinson's or anything, to know there are people like me that love you, and we send our love and support, and I'm going to keep fighting until we find a cure. Any donations, we have a link, goes to the Michael J. Fox Foundation in memory of my mother, or the Parkinson's Foundation, or Drive Toward a Cure, and Power Over Parkinson's, and the American Parkinson's Disease Association. So in a way, I love it because I don't have to deal with the IRS and taxes.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
none of it's out of our hands. So again, the most important thing is my goal today is to know that I literally want nothing in return today, except that people know that we're going to fight till we find a cure.
Well, tell me about your mom. Who was she? What was it? Because I want to get into the Parkinson's, because I think that for a lot of my listeners, and I mentioned before we started recording that I have friends that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that is what they're battling now. But your mom, where was she from?
Yeah, my mother's originally from Brooklyn. I was born there. She was a very independent woman. Unfortunately, my parents were divorced, so she lived alone. She shopped alone. She had a bunch of beautiful friends. She really was able to live a regular life. She liked to walk, so it didn't really start to impact her towards the last 15 years of her life. And we always heard the word Parkinson's, but I never even, to be honest, was aware myself till the last 4 years.
Yeah.
She didn't have a lot growing up. She struggled. Met my father. She had a master's in psychology, was a school teacher for little children, but she gave it all up so my father could go to medical school, and she raised me and my brother. And as I mentioned, I don't feel I would be the man or have accomplished what I did if it wasn't for her sacrifices. So when she was in the most time of need, I didn't even think twice that it's time to not just give back, but never let her go through this tough journey alone.
Yeah, absolutely. when did she begin to, or when did you both, I guess, begin to recognize that there was something wrong? Not necessarily that it had been diagnosed as Parkinson's, but when and what was it that you all happened to notice was one of the changes?
Yeah, she had it for many years, like I mentioned, and she didn't. I don't know. Like, I wish I could go back and wonder, talk, and ask her. I don't know if she was ashamed, worried, scared, or just unknown of what the future was going to bring. She never wanted to bother anyone about her own issues. She always put her family first and her friends. Even today, if she knew I was doing this, she would say, "George, wait, don't waste your time. Go spend your time with this family." And I appreciate it, but it's not going to happen, Mom. So, she didn't show many signs. So towards the last 5 years, she had her left arm was kind of stiff. So she had trouble maybe cutting food, but again, she could still drive, shop, and be with her friends. Come over on Sunday morning. She loved to see her three grandkids, and they blew bubbles in the backyard. So, but then what happened is, unfortunately, she was getting worse, and she just was struggling. So they decided to enroll her in a special trial. And again, I'm not mad at the doctors or the trial or anything, because I only blame the disease, not the people around it.
Sure.
But she came back that night, and we don't know to this day if they drastically changed the medicine or what happened. But I was called, and you can take classes maybe on caregiving, but you don't know what caregiving is. So you're thrown in the depths of, felt like hell. For my own personal, I never had a feeling like that. I've been through a lot. I've been maced, tased. I'm going through the police academy, and that feels like hell. But there's nothing like this feeling, because it's your loved one.
Yeah.
So at 4 a.m., I got a call by my father from New York. "George, you got to rush over to your mother's house at 4 a.m." I didn't even know what to expect. I was scared, worried. I didn't know if I could control the situation, because as a police officer, reserve, you get to a scene, you take care. You can usually, assess it. So I got there, and I still didn't. I was all frantic. My mother was moving her furniture out of her house, and she thought someone was going to harm her. And that's when we found out she late onset dementia had kicked in. So now we had another fight to come. And what happens with that, some terms it's even more frightening, because you have hallucinations and delusions. So I brought her to the hospital. They said we saved her life. But in a way, I kind of feel that it was the start of something bad, because her health, imagine like a hammer and a nail. I felt like I was just being hit over the head. And just finally, the worst part of that story, and again, I want this to end on a positive note, because out of sadness comes great things, like me having the opportunity to meet you. And hopefully, again, this is not just about a podcast, but a friendship. And even I consider a lot of people family after this. But so I went into a room to get some clothing, and I don't have one here, but we have Post-it notes that we use just for reminders around our whole room, like a horror movie. For Post-it notes of people's names and dogs and animals that we used to have. And she just couldn't understand at some points of the day who was really there in reality and who wasn't. And actually, that was the moment that, like, I was crushed. I felt sad, and I fell apart myself. But I had to pick myself up and be strong for her. So, but after that day, they put her in like a rehab center, and she went from walking to a cane to a walker to a wheelchair, and the last week bedbound. And it's just something I never want anyone else to ever have to go through.
No, absolutely. It's one of my fears of either myself or family member being stricken with the battle against Parkinson's disease, because that's ultimately what it really is. We mentioned before we started recording, Matt Villardebeau he is a candidate for the state house here in South Carolina, and I know that he's done a lot working to raise money for Parkinson's disease because he is affected by it. I mentioned we have a mutual friend in down in Galveston, Texas, named Melissa. That she's a huge advocate, and you do a podcast with her. Tell me about the podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I consider her one of the people I would never have met if it wasn't for this adventure or journey. We have a podcast. So basically, I'm not an expert like you, but I just thought, people like seeing faces and voices, not just the radio. I mean, we're getting into new technology and things. Soon they'll have AI, and we won't have to. We won't be able to do anything. They'll have one of you, and I can picture.
Yeah,
Like I said, tell the viewers I love the voice. He has the best voice out of any.
appreciate that. Thank you.
But anyway, so I see a lot of podcasts. They're all unique and whatever. But what I didn't notice is there was never one that I've seen that brings someone with Parkinson's together with the caretaker. So I've met three individuals: Mark Milo,
Yep.
Melissa Marie Livingston, and Esther, who's also you might know from TikTok.
Yep. Yeah. Oh. Uh-oh. I lost him. There we go.
Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, I was so excited. I guess. So and Esther, and so what we did is I'm the caretaker, and they were the three individuals diagnosed with Parkinson's, and it's called Unscripted, where we just get together, and we always have so many amazing talks. We're up to episode 3. We do one a month, and it's just incredible because there's just so much in common, even though we all have such different paths.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we were talking talking about your mother's Parkinson's, and I did remember reading that she did wind up suffering from dementia. I've had family members that have wound up suffering from dementia, but
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, and no, and I appreciate that. But my uncle's dementia wasn't the result of some genetic marker. He didn't develop dementia from anything related to anything familiar. His was a result of he had an injury in his shoulder and then developed in the hospital a staph infection. And that staph infection actually made its way up to his brain, and that was what actually resulted in him suffering from dementia. And it took him very quickly. And of course, you're not a medical doctor, but do you have any sort of feelings about whether the Parkinson's and the dementia were potentially related? Was it, is there a history of dementia in your family?
Excuse me, I'm really glad you brought that up. There's one thing I do want to point out, and you are, again, well aware, and I'm not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in mind in criminal justice. I'm a professor, but Parkinson's disease is very tough to fight because it's so unique and it does not affect every person the same. So what happened to my mother in our journey does not mean somebody else will have the same outcome. So, we were very upset and frustrated and still am today because we were told you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So we never dreamt that my mother would kind of drastically decline in health and pass away at only age 69. Back to your question, I don't know much about my history. I've never been one to do that test that you see on TV.
Yeah.
I always see everybody loving to do that. Even they do their dogs now, which I don't, I don't understand. But not, I love everyone, so nothing. But so I don't know about the history. I don't know anyone like through the individuals I knew living that had it. But it was not everyone again gets dementia that has Parkinson's and the same other way around.
Yeah.
I do wish we had a cure for dementia too, because it's so hard to deal with that. Plus, she had fibromyalgia, which was pain, and dystonia comes where the curling of the toes.
Yeah.
She didn't have a lot of the external tremors like Michael J. Fox, an incredible and inspiring actor and hero in the world of advocacy. So it's frustrating too because you don't see it, but inside she was having these tremors. So even that is tough on her brain because she felt like she was saying things, but nobody saw it, so they didn't believe her. So it's just such a struggle with one day to a day. But I don't know about the history of dementia in my family. They've done so much, more studies and technology since, unfortunately, my mother had Parkinson's. I personally, I don't know if it's a bias, but I think she got it due to pesticides and things like that because she had a nice home and a nice life and a beautiful place in Boca Raton, Florida. She didn't really keep up with the house. I don't know why. I was too young and at law school. But she had, mold and she had termites. So over the years, she had all the pesticide. Who knows what they sprayed? But I really feel in my heart that really was something that could have caused it. And now they're coming out with studies that the paraquat and the water at Camp Lejeune and so many other environmental things cause Parkinson's. And finally, I think the government's standing up and doing something, but it's too late for so many, which is really sad.
Yeah, and that is definitely one of the things that I've read over the course of the several years that I've recognized just how much of a dramatic impact Parkinson's has, the number of individuals, and really, the studies that are looking into it it does seem to be pointing toward some environmental issues that are man-made environmental issues. You mentioned the use of chemicals and things like that, or what's in the water, that sort of thing. It does seem to be leaning towards that direction. That this might be the root cause, might actually be something that we as humans have done. I mean, we learned it took decades to figure out that we were using asbestos in our to insulate our homes and buildings and things like that, only to find out that breathing in the asbestos dust it gives you cancer. I mean, it leads to potentially have cancer. So, and when they figured that out, asbestos got it was made illegal to use in residential homes. Lead paint. I mean, these are, but it takes money being invested by the groups that are going to actually be able to do those studies so that we can get to the answer of what's causing it. And and if you figure out what's causing it, I'm of the belief that enough money involved can come up with a cure to put a stop to these things for the people that already have it, and put a stop to the potential of people developing Parkinson's because we've removed whatever that adjutant is that's creating the situation.
And that's why this show is so important, and all the work I do, because again, the more awareness. If we even reach one person tonight that now understands Parkinson's, we've changed the world. I mean, I don't want to get back to my professor role in business course 101, but if you take the Ford Pinto case, which was really tragic,
Yeah.
I'm disclaiming this. We're not saying anything bad about Ford, although they waited. And Ford, due
I
to
have my complaints.
they weighed the cost benefit versus life. I mean, people
Yep.
were dying with the car exploding. Well, every time we wait another minute, people are losing their life due to this disease, and it's really something I think that we can change.
So you mentioned being a caretaker to your mother. Sorry, my light went out.
We're having some interesting technology tonight. I had a scratch. I'm never going to scratch my ear again because it threw me right up.
Being your mother's caretaker, what were some of the struggles that you had in that caretaker role? Because I'll just say, I know it's extremely difficult. My grandfather, he lived with us and he aged out, so I saw the struggles that my mother had as his caretaker. My brother has some physical issues because he suffered from brain tumors. And so she's been his caretaker for almost his entire life. What are some of the struggles of being the caretaker for your mother who suffered from Parkinson's?
Thank you for that question. It's not an easy answer. I mean, I went through every stage of, if you look at some of the psychological, emotional, the hierarchies of Maslow, but you go through sadness, grief, some of the, you don't even know what tomorrow will bring. Every day I felt like I was really searching, because I'm the kind of person, no matter what, I'll look for every avenue, everything. We try medical marijuana, which was a whole nother podcast, because I'm a cop trying to figure out if it's legal. I don't want to get in trouble. It was just a really funny and scary story. It didn't work for her. But, we tried everything, but every day was another issue. So she had a lot of fear. We spent about $12,000 a month just to hire what I call babysitters. They were caregivers, but they didn't know what Parkinson's was. They were just there so she wouldn't fall when I couldn't be there. But we were spending a tremendous amount of money, and then she would call me and tell me that they're harming her. As a son, you believe it. So I had to put video cameras in. Luckily, I noticed they didn't, but one did neglect her when she didn't sleep at all because of she had a lot of stomach issues caused from all the medication. So that was another, nightmare. But as a caregiver, I mean, even today, 4 years later, I'm still grieving. I feel that these talks, like with you, even though you don't realize it, but they really help me a lot. I've done a lot of them where I'm okay and I walk in the other room to my office with my wife, and I might fall apart because it brings back, memories of my mother and what she struggled. But you have to talk about it. You have to speak up, and I tell everybody you have to stand up, because if you don't and we don't, then we're again going to be further from a cure.
Yeah, absolutely. And please don't feel like you have to hold back, because honestly, with my audience, I absolutely try to give as much information and be as honest as absolutely possible, because ultimately, especially when it comes to things like Parkinson's and dementia and cancers and things like that, there's no way, I don't believe that you can really get a good, you can't really impact somebody unless it's from the heart and it's absolutely honest. And whether it's that you fear what's to come, or you're simply just exhausted from what's already passed. It's real, and there's no way, the idea of asking someone just to get over that, or expecting that they can't decompress after even just sitting the two of us talking about it, that it's going to require decompression. I told you before we started recording, it's been a week. And I know that at some point I'm going to have to decompress from everything I've experienced this week, and it's probably going to be in the form of sitting in the dark and just weeping. And that's the honest truth, is that I'm not man enough to sit here and say I don't cry. No, absolutely.
Hopefully you'll laugh a little remembering our little talk.
I promise.
Tomorrow.
I promise. I've got some stuff to entertain us towards the end of this, so you don't have to worry. We'll make good fun of it. So you mentioned Michael J. Fox, and I saw you actually had pictures posted on your Instagram just recently of actually getting to meet Michael J. Fox. Tell me about that a little bit. What was that experience like?
He's a hero before all the Parkinson's. Unfortunately, I have my own issues that I could probably write a book about back problems. I've had 2 spine surgeries that didn't work. I might be having a third in the summer. But when I was in the hospital, all of a sudden I was so excited, not for the surgery, that they had a Back to the Future marathon. I was like, yes. Now I don't know if I want to watch it. I've been watching it. But anyway, to tell you the truth, I grew up with Family Ties and all these shows, but never thought much about it. And then I learned about what happened to Mr. Fox. He had early onset Parkinson's, like Melissa, which means you get it at age 30 almost, or 40s, around our ages. And, it's very tough, because I feel like they're robbed also. They might be able to live and, again, still do things, but they have to now fight this disease, which is just not fair. So he has it.
Yeah.
And last year, he released the first movie ever where I don't think came out, but he fought back and explained his story, where one day he was in bed and his finger just started twitching,
Yeah.
and he didn't know what it was, so he ignored it. And then he talked about, and I did a movie review on it on our website, but he spoke about how he was just scared to really come out because he didn't want to lose his job, his friends, his family, but he decided to advocate. So he's one of my heroes because he didn't have to do that. He formed the Michael J. Fox Foundation for research in Parkinson's disease, and they're one of the leaders in the world to help fund a cure and fight for a cure. I've had an honor now to work with them, and I'm going to be at one of their events called the IQ event, and we're going to have a table and talk about my mother. It's in March in Hollywood, Florida, so that's going to be exciting. But I heard out of nowhere that he was going to be in Orlando, which is about 3 or 4 hours away. And even the trip was a journey, which I don't know so it's time. But I looked at my wife and said, "Can you believe Mr. Fox is going to be there?" And she's like, "Wow." And I'm like, "I would love to meet him, even though it's more of a comic book thing. I don't care about comics, but I care a lot about him."
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's had galas for his foundation. I haven't attended, but he hasn't made the last 3 years because of likely Parkinson. So I said, you know what, I want to go. I want to thank him for what he does. We don't know how many more he's going to be able to do. I know he loves his fans, so it was more of a fan thing. that I was going into it as a awareness and to tell them how much we sent our love. So anyway, I made the journey. I wouldn't have went if my wife didn't support it, and that's another thing. My support throughout this whole journey was my wife. Thankfully, she loved my mother. They were best friends too, and she was strong enough to help with my kids. And while I was able to spend time, if I didn't have that, I might not have been able to do that time with my mother. So that meant the world to me. Even now, she's still a huge support. And we host another podcast called the Together for Sharon podcast, where we actually interview people in the Parkinson's community. And tomorrow, we're interviewing an artist, a cartoonist who does Parkinson's. And it's beautiful because it's a comic strip like the old days, but Parkinson's is like a big black blob. And he sits next to it, and they talk and they argue. It's just genius. So tomorrow, I'm really excited for that. We only do that one once a month, but because she's busy with the kids. But anyway, back to Michael J. Fox. So I got there, and they do all these rules. They'll probably get mad if I say it. Don't touch, don't talk, don't do anything. And I was like, this is my one moment. Even if it's for a second, I'm going to do it. So I had a whole spiel, and I memorized it. I said, Mr. Fox, you're my idol and role model. I love you. We sent our love. We started together for Sharon.com. Memory of my mother. I thought I was going to get thrown out, and I actually handed him the band. We have a band that we had now for free. It just says the memory of Mom, Sharon, and it says Together for Sharon and Parkinson's Awareness. And he looked at me and said, "Thank you. I really appreciate it." And I wanted to ask him, can I interview him someday? But I decided not to because I looked at his eyes. I don't know if it was, again, the timing or maybe medicines, but at that moment, I felt like so much happiness, but also sadness, seeing what it does to him or anyone. So in my mind, it was like a movie, like, I just needed your voiceover. But it was like, just like spinning about all the good and memories of Mom and then the bad. And it was just a great moment. And I didn't even realize it, but I got the picture. I was so excited. I shared it. I went home. A friend of mine happened to see other people taking pictures with him that day, more Back to the Future, and he had the band on the whole day. And I didn't even realize. I looked at my picture and I'm like, wait a minute, he was wearing the band, and it was like just inspiring. Now that he knows about my mother, and like I said today, if one more person knows, but if Michael J. Fox now knows, it's really changed my life, and he inspires me to even fight harder. And I went into the bathroom and fell. I made a video. It's online. I wanted people to know that I send my love. And he's having, in my opinion, a tough time. But again, I could be completely wrong with my information. Maybe he was just tired. But it's just the whole thing's in my, if it's not French, but it just sucks that anyone has to do this. And there's many nights I don't sleep just thinking about those people like Melissa, Mark, Esther, and so many people that I've met. The other day I have another podcast. I don't have that many. We're becoming a channel,
No,
but it's called
we were tied for a minute there. Now you've pulled ahead. So
it's called Q&A with Sharon Son, and the idea was really to highlight people who have written books or comics, or we're interviewing an actual person with Parkinson's, and he's a comic. He travels the world and does comedy with Parkinson. And I interviewed a congressman about the plan, New York, Paul Tonko, Democrat, and he was just great that he even gave me that opportunity. I actually contacted my governor, DeSantis. If you're listening, we'd like an interview with you. But I wasn't able to. But the Secretary of State of Health, which is huge, third almost highest person in Florida, we're going to be doing an interview. So, I'm getting out there. I've tried to reach out to a lot of celebrities, not because they're celebrities, but because they have much more reach. I've been successful. I don't know if you know Kenny G. He made an actual video in memory of my mother and played a saxophone. It's on our webpage because her favorite artist when she was with us was Kenny G. And they used to torture me in the car as a kid. Oh, it was Kenny G, Kenny G. And I had nightmares, and then now I like him. So,
great.
we're just trying to get the word out, but probably that was a long-winded answer to your important question. But
that's okay.
Michael J. Fox is my hero, and I wish him love, and we fight for him. All the donations, if anyone, we've donated about $17,000 for my own family over the years to these organizations, and we want nothing in return but, again, a cure. So they're one of the foundations we really support, and we're trying, maybe tomorrow we're going to book it. And I usually don't travel a lot. It's tough with my back and family and work. Or we might be, hopefully, and if we can't make it, maybe your viewers can, on, I think, approximately April 29th or 7th. they're having, it's called the Parkinson's Unity Walk, and it's a walk in Central Park, New York City, and it's the 30th anniversary. Michael J. Fox Foundation puts it on, and it's just going to be a beautiful time with people who have Parkinson's, caregivers, people who don't. They're just going to walk a mile, I believe, for a cure.
Yeah.
It's a fun.
Well, I don't want it to go without being said. The website is togetherforsharon.com. So that's where you can get all of the information. You can go there. You can read everything there is to read about what it is that you and your family have done in memory of Sharon. I guess
that's become a bigger thing too, like
Yeah.
we mentioned, than I could have dreamed. And we, one thing just quickly, I realized a year ago there are about 1 million people in the U.S. Who have Parkinson's, and it's one of the fastest growing neurodegenerative diseases, sadly, in the world. But I learned about an organization called World Parkinson Congress, and I never even heard of them. Well, every 2 years they have an event, which it's almost like, if you're into politics, like the big event where everybody just gathers. Well, this is for the Parkinson's community. And again, I wasn't aware. So I watched it on virtually. They were in Barcelona, Spain. I can't make it to there. But Paul McCarthy was their speaker. I mean, that's pretty big.
that is.
So what I decided is it's not about just my mother and I anymore. It's about everybody. And I feel, again, we're a family in this fight. So I've actually interviewed more on internet, like email interview, because I can't do 600 interviews that quickly. But it's changed my life. I've interviewed 600 people throughout the world, from France, Spain, Italy, Iceland, Australia. I mean, you name it, we've covered it in Africa. And what we're doing is, I interview them for free. I post it for free, and you can read it for free. And every morning when you wake up, I have my phone. I get like butterflies, like when I met my wife, a different way. But and it inspires me to keep fighting, because a new story will pop up, and it's just incredible. Because now those people, and you probably have seen, it'll come up on my social media. I don't know why I have 7 social media. It's all just me, but it goes back to the foundation too. We're not a foundation; it's just me. And I just feel like a part of me is lost forever when my mother passed. So again, don't want to get emotional, but that's why I do what I do, and that's why we're here today, to fight for everybody else.
Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit more about the National Plan to End Parkinson's Act? Like, how has that progressed over the last few years, as far as because what we're basically looking at is the House has now passed a bill that moves on to the Senate.
Yep. Yeah, so basically, this was a bill, and I didn't even know about, but the beginning of last year, I became involved. I was really honored that the Michael J. Fox Foundation reached out to me to be a spokesperson to my local representative, which anyone could have been at that time. So I had an honor to speak to my local representative of the House, and it was me and 3 other individuals. Some had Parkinson's, and we got 3 minutes each to speak. I put my speech online. It's on the website. If you click, it'll go to the national plan, and you can read the whole million-page plan if you really want to. But so I planned this speech at 3 minutes. I've spoken to thousands of people as a lawyer and a professor, no shame. And this was a tough one though, because it was about my mother. I practiced it. Finally got on the call. I fell apart in the middle of it, because there's one sentence that says, my mother loves Sundays blowing bubbles with her grandkids, and she'll never be able to do that again because of this disease. They loved it because they wanted the representative to know how important this is. But so that helped, because it passed. And so I thank Michael J. Fox and all those out there, who helped speak to their reps. Now we're moving forward in history, and we're still making it. But we need everyone, including yourself, to reach out to your U.S. Senators, because now it's going to the biggest floor in the world. And if it passes there, it goes to the president to sign into law. Out of the House, I mean, over 400 people voted. We have 6 people, which I partially, the bad guy on my shoulders, like, write them a letter. But I don't know why I don't think they were informed or aware, which is sad, but we had enough to crush the whole thing, and that doesn't matter. But there's no reason, this is again bipartisan, there's no reason someone wouldn't support it. It's kind of frustrating. So anyway, moving forward, I've already gotten Senator in my state, Florida, Rick Scott and Marco Rubio have signed on, which is incredible. I'm, again, trying to get them to do a little podcast. It's not easy, but I just hope everyone out there And it's so much easier, as you know, to reach your senator because it's just one or two instead of your House of Representatives. Because that gets very confusing, even for me. It's like there's so many, representatives.
Yeah.
So the whole plan really is to dramatically increase the federal research for funding, develop effective pathways for treatments and cures, improve early diagnosis, spark new and innovative and improved models for patient care, create standards and measures to prevent this disease, address health disparities, and also finally what we're doing, help enhance public awareness. But really the most important message that not just the Michael J. Fox Foundation has, but people who have Parkinson's that are my friends. One is another individual named George. I always joke with him because his name is George, and there's not many Georges, so we're friends for life. But I'm George. But anyway, he always tells me, George, if you're going to talk about this, you have to push the main word is urgency because people are suffering right now. And if we don't get this should have been passed 100 years ago if we could have known about it. But it needs to be passed now. So thank you again for helping me spread the word of the national plan to end Parkinson.
No, absolutely. This is. I think that should be the focus of what our government does, or it should be one of the focuses is health and finding cures to things like Parkinson's and some of these cancers, as well as I know this gets a little political, but there are so many medications out there that treat different diseases and cancers and things like that. And pharmaceutical companies are out there just making billions and billions of dollars in profit on medication that is literally keeping people alive. So people have to make the decision: do I go into debt or financially destroy myself just to keep myself alive, or do I give up? And I think that's one of the things that our senators and our congressmen should be doing more of, is working to get these pharmaceutical companies more in line. So that's all I'll say politically, because I know that it
Funny you mention that because we do a lot of walks. So it's weird. I'll tell you the truth. And South Florida is a very large elderly population, very large Parkinson's population, but there is not enough awareness. They have the Parkinson Foundation, which puts a beautiful event called the Moving Day. So it's a walk. So we're honored enough to be donated this year $1,000 from our family. Anyone can join in. If you go to togetherforsharon.com, click donations. There's 3 or 4 choices of organizations. I don't ever tell anyone to just donate to one because everybody's in need.
Yeah.
Again, none of it goes to us, but it's in memory of my mother, which was beautiful. They all made a nice page. So we'll have a table at the walk with just me, a hand out bands, and it's nice to have an in-face or in-person thing finally, because everything these days is on virtual, which I actually love because you get to meet individuals like you. And again, I'm grateful for our time tonight. So we have a table, but the problem is we're in the middle of all the pharmaceutical companies. So they're all selling things. And we actually have people kind of run away from me, but then they take a second look, see the sign of my mother and me. They come over and they hug us and they cry. And that's really not just inspiring, but those are the people, again, they're like ingrained in my memory from when I wake up to I go to sleep, even during the day. It makes me want to keep pushing and keep hoping that some incredible people out there like you might be able to hear our story and share it. And that's how we met too, is thankfully for social media.
No, and I'm very thankful for it, because I feel like the reason that we wound up being connected was because of the friends that I have that have been affected by Parkinson's. And and that's one of the few brilliance of social media, is just how it does bring people together for a common interest, or that there is you wind up being drawn together in these sorts of situations. Because if it weren't for Melissa or potentially Shaky Tom, who is easily one of the most intelligent, and because he suffers from Parkinson's as well, but I absolutely thrive, or not thrive, I guess isn't the right word, but I am so inspired when I see his videos come up, And I watch them all the way through 2 or 3 times sometimes, because I feel like what it is that he's out there trying to express as far as awareness about Parkinson's and things like that, he does it so well. And I wish that everything that he put out there was more available, or that it was being seen more often than it is, because I feel like, and you can confirm this, but Parkinson's is one of those things that there is so much fear wrapped around what it is going to do to affect you personally, that I feel like it goes undiagnosed a lot of the time until it's gotten to the point where it can't be ignored. You know, in your situation with your mother, as far as like, what was it that finally drove you all to the point where it was like, we got to figure out what this is?
Yeah, she again had it for a long time, and they kind of, I feel like, kept me in the dark. My father's an orthopedic surgeon in New York, so he would try to help, but he would bring her to doctors. We saw like 15 doctors, but no one really, I don't want to say anything bad about medical field, but a lot of them call themselves Parkinson's specialists. So, you think if you're going to somebody like that, they'll be able to give you a cure, but that's not reality.
Yeah.
They try to help you, with medicines. But I, again, really, to be honest, I knew what the word Parkinson, not even disease, for all that time until that 4th year when I took over, because it was like almost an emergency situation. So I find that, and I wonder, and I haven't mentioned it, but I'm writing a book. We just finished it. It might take some time to get out.
Okay.
And it's going to be my journey of my mother and me, and my continuing journey. I call it aftermath, but in a positive way, because now I have a new field, which is advocacy for my mother in her memory. But so it's bringing up a lot of tough memories, but I can't wait, because it's going to kind of keep me on focus, and each chapter is just so important and different. So I always, doing that book, I was thinking while I was writing, why they didn't tell me, why didn't they, mention it? I feel like, again, I think we said earlier, I don't know if she was ashamed, unaware. Some of the biggest problems in society today with Parkinson's is misdiagnosis, or like you said, not even being diagnosed. So there's so many conversations we need to have, and the problem is the time. There's just so little time. But again, I think back and wish I could ask her today, almost not shaking her, but why didn't you tell me earlier? But I don't think I could have done anything different. Again, the only thing we prayed for was a cure. We heard a rumor there would be a pill 3 years. This was like 10 years ago. Again, we tried everything. She was in pain all the time towards the end. And whether it was the dementia hallucinations and the Parkinson's shaking, then it was the fibromyalgia, back pain, dystonia with the turtles curling. It was just such a hard thing to manage that I bring up my wife, because she was just a hero to me. We tried to do anything we could, even for just a small moment, to make my mother feel like a regular person, because Parkinson's disease does not define you, and that's very important. It might, unfortunately, be part of you, but it doesn't define you. And she would bring in towards the end, when my mother's not doing well, hair people. Again, we're guys, so I don't know the words, but manicure, pedicure, anything that would just, in a few minutes, make her smile. But, she was having a tough time, so sometimes we had to cancel. But, anything, my advice, if you're a caretaker, forget all the bad things if there were. Thankfully, my mother was my best friend. We never had a bad thing, honestly. Maybe 2 arguments in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But she was the first person I called when the good happened, when the bad. Every degree you mentioned, she was right by my side. It took me 7 years, which is actually quick, to do a PhD, and I wanted to quit about 800 times, and she was always the voice that said, don't. So again, I wouldn't have what I have if it wasn't for my mother.
Yeah. Well, and again, the website is Together for Sharon. So anyone listening, if you have, just please go check out the website, read through some of the information on there. Again, any donations you all are doing, those are going to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's. That is, it is one of those things that really needs a lot more public attention, because ultimately, if we're just sitting inside of our shells and think it can't affect us, George here is absolutely someone that can say yes, it can affect anybody.
Also, yeah, it's amazing and sad at the same time how many people, when I'm speaking now, come up and tell me they don't have it, but a neighbor has it, or some old friend. It seems like, unfortunately, I mean, it's spreading, like not spreading literally, but like just more people are saying now they're aware, but for bad reasons. So if we could share this, and that's why I came on today, not just because, again, I think you're the best, also, but I also think that we have to reach. And it sounds so weird because, like, coming from me, I'm like, I guess, a Parkinson's advocate, but I don't want to just reach the Parkinson's community. My dream and goal is to reach people who do not have Parkinson's and people who are not Parkinson's caretakers, because we need everybody on board, or we're never going to be closer to a cure.
Yeah, and it's not just about reaching the people that can make a difference, but it's reaching the people that can push the people that can make a difference to make a difference. You know, it's the dominoes have to fall. And it's about making those connections with people so that change comes in small increments, but in order to get that change started, there has to be enough people that are aware, and that ultimately it's things like this that really set that in motion. Is really the biggest thing. I wanted to also mention the movie that Michael J. Fox did is called Still, a Michael J. Fox movie that is actually on Apple TV. So if you're an Apple TV Plus subscriber, it's available to watch. I've watched it, and it is emotionally one of the most enjoyable things I've ever watched. It is extremely real, and it will, if you're a normal human being, it will have an unbelievable effect on you. And honestly, my hope is that anyone that watches anything involving Michael J. Fox, I mean, I watched some of the reunion stuff between him and Christopher Lloyd, where you know,
saw him too.
Yeah,
I saw him the other day.
It's the two of them together are so just iconic. And the fact that even in Christopher Lloyd's advanced age, you know, he's still going out there, and anytime there's something that the Michael J. Fox Foundation needs, Christopher Lloyd is there in a heartbeat. Leah Thompson, same thing. She's always seems to be available for almost anything they need, and I'm just it's inspiring to see something that is just so. It's uncomfortable. I mean, when I see Michael J. Fox when he's been interviewed, you know, it's uncomfortable to watch, but it's one of those things that you really just have to muscle through, because you need the perspective. You need to understand, you know, me as someone who is not battling Parkinson's, I need to see what those effects are, because that's the only way to really recognize just how big of an impact it has on the people with it and the people around them. And the fact that there's absolutely, we are too technologically advanced to continue to make people suffer through this. There's got to be something out there that will either do away with it or at least prevent it from happening to someone else. You know, that's my opinion, but I feel like that opinion is based on enough information and enough facts that there's, you know, same with cancer. These are things that you know, we know that they're in our future. We should be able to come to some way to prevent and cure these sorts of things.
On that note, actually, because you mentioned cancer, so again, sitting here talking live, this will go out to the world. I am an interesting person in my own view of myself because I do not have Parkinson's, and I'm not a caretaker of somebody living with Parkinson's. So, unfortunately, I found that I've been in a very odd world right now where feel alone again, unfortunately. So what I decided is I need also some support. So I reached out, went to like 10 to 15 different groups, and they were more for people caring for people alive. So I found myself not wanting to speak because I don't want to, you know, make someone sad or talk about end of life and
Sure.
death with dignity. So I was approached, I guess, because I'm on all the social medias. And by the way, I hope I want you to add me and Elijah on TikTok after. I didn't know you're on TikTok. I never thought I'd be on TikTok, number one. Anyway.
My TikTok's very political. So
I don't care. Well, you can add the non-political George on there.
there you go.
But
There you go.
anyway, so I was reached out. It's called PSP Awareness.
Okay.
It stands for, I can't say it, but it's very technical. But those are individuals who also have a horrible disease that's, can take life. And it's similar to Parkinson's, but not Parkinson's. I actually have the word, and I always forget because it's just, but anyway, so they approached me. And, we said we'd love to work together. And again, I'm not looking for anything, so I didn't know. And I was so excited because it's great. So we came up with the idea, why not start a support group for people who've lost their loved one due to Parkinson's? And then we decided, wait, it's not just also about Parkinson's, it's about any disease. So you mentioned cancer. So we're starting this month. It's in a week. I'm so excited in a sad way, but I'm excited that we are starting our first support group around the world. It's virtual, where it'll be confidential, will not be taped, and we're gonna I'll be the kind of the support counselor. I don't know what you call it, host, and we're welcoming everyone completely free. So there's no charges again.
That's
Everything
great.
I do is free, and anyone can come who's lost a loved one due to any disease. The only fear I have, to be honest, is that we're gonna get too many people, and then no one will. I don't want that. Right now, I think they have a lot because they keep, they put me on the cover and people are luckily listening. I just wish I could find something. While you're going through it, I'll try and find the name. But anyway, that was something really important to me, and I'll let you know again how it goes. But it's going to be just once a month.
Yeah, please
and,
do.
Just really, and another nice thing out there for people who feel alone like I did, and I still do, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I completely understand, and I hope that through continued advocacy and continued awareness and just pushing about everything involved, I'm hoping that you and your family members find some sort of peace in knowing that despite the fact that Parkinson's and dementia took your mother, that through what she gave or what she went through could potentially lead to because of your pushing for awareness and your family pushing for advocacy and pushing for money and things like that to help. I'm hoping that you all find peace in knowing that she didn't pass in vain, but that this is all leading to what will inevitably happen, and that is that other people will find relief in their fight against Parkinson's.
I appreciate it. I did find it. It's PSP is progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare progressive brain disorder caused by a gradual deterioration of cells in the brain system. So, again, it's similar but not Parkinson. But I hate, all these diseases, including cancer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, want to make sure everybody knows and remembers and goes and looks. The website is togetherforsharon.com. And before I let you go, I do want to do what we do on this show with all of my guests is we do what's called 7 questions. It's the All About Nothing podcast, 7 questions.
I love it. I have one quick thing after,
Please.
Unless you want me to say it now.
No, please go ahead. Go for it.
I just want to thank you and your audience for this time. Again, I can't say words really. I shouldn't even say it because they don't mean enough. Just from my heart to all of you. But I always say this on every podcast or any of my own. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because I'm not, but I feel like, again, every day we're kind of renewed, and, you got a new sense of a new journey that you see. And the only journey that crushes me to this day is the journey I don't know about. So
Sure.
If you're out there and you think you're struggling, please, reach out. It's togetherforsharon@gmail.com. It's pretty simple. Again, the only thing you'll get from me is some love and support. I don't want money. We'll send it back to you. That's not what we're doing this for.
Well, I would advocate for maybe if they do send money that we continue to push that over to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, because I think that they do so much good work to spread awareness about Parkinson's. So All right, Dr. George Ackerman, are you ready for your 7 questions?
Yep. I hope I can still use this podcast after this.
You'll be okay. I haven't had anybody say anything incredibly offensive yet. So, all right. First question: what was the last thing you Googled?
Interesting. Well, today, unfortunately, is how to get your computer back on the internet, so you can go to a podcast called All About Nothing.
That's a fair one. I appreciate the fact that you did, because honestly, when you messaged me earlier, I thought well, it's not a big deal. We'll figure out how to get everything working. So that was good.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm very reliable.
All right, second question: if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
I mean, this is kind of biased, but I would, if I could heal Parkinson's or get rid of it, that would be my only thing in my life that I care. And if I could bring someone back, it would be my mother. But I don't want to bring her back with she had Parkinson's. So.
Yeah, no, I think that is a very apropos answer. That's terrific. All right, third question: what is your most embarrassing favorite song?
Interesting. I mean, I love music. I love everything. It's embarrassing. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to ruin your question, but I have a favorite moment. Is that good or no?
Sure. Yeah, please.
I flip it around, but I mean, honestly, one of my favorite moments, one of the pictures I might have sent you is my mother and I dancing at my wedding.
Yeah.
The mother and son, and my wife took it and made it black and white, and it made it even more unique and beautiful. And that's like my favorite picture ever after the kids and my wife. But it was one of her favorite moments in life because she was so happy for us, and it really just was the start of a new world for me and the kids and family, and it brought everything together. But being able to have her there in that moment, and we played Barry Manilow, "I Am Your Son," because besides Kenny G, she loved Barry Manilow, and I remember I got to bring her before she passed a few years before to see Barry Manilow.
That's nice.
So those are the little things when you say something or when you hear a song brings you back to some better times.
No, I think that's great, and please, wherever the question takes you, feel free.
Got an embarrassing one now. You want the one too?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oddly enough, before I went to the world of police and saving lives, I was a bouncer in nightclubs for like 10. And I just love dancing. I don't drink, never smoked, never did that. But it was probably embarrassing, but I'd just go in the middle of the floor, all these beautiful people, and just dance the night away. And I probably made a fool of myself. And I didn't. When you're in that moment, you don't care. That's why actually today, and again, not to go back to Parkinson, but one of the biggest things to fight neurodegenerative diseases. So I don't want to leave this podcast with sadness, but there's a lot of hope, not just for a cure, but you can fight it through dancing with Parkinson. They have organizations called Dancing with Parkinson, punching and boxing. They're having a big boxing event in Miami, Florida. We might be attending, and that's punching for Parkinson's. I've been to the ballet here, Boat Group Ballet, and they had ballet with Parkinson's, where it brought little children together with elderly. It was just so many beautiful things, but no one's aware even of that. So that's what the site is. It has all that. Social media, we share all that. I share a lot of other organizations just because I just wish more people knew about it. Just yesterday, we had a podcast and I interviewed two incredible, it's a husband and a wife. She has Parkinson's. She actually the spokesperson for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And we're celebrating Black History Month. They're both Black, but their story is just incredible, and they're trying to reach a population that's diverse and need help. So anyway, you could see I love awareness, but I also hate it at the same time.
No, I think that's terrific. I think that's just awesome. All right, let's see. Fourth question, and this one I'm hoping this one is designed to make you think of your parents, but. What was one of the things that your parents did that embarrassed you?
I'm so proud of my mother that she never embarrassed me.
Okay.
My father, I don't know. It's hard. I just, I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
I think it was I think I got one. I look back, I kind of regret it, but me and my mother used to fight every Sunday really in an angry but loving way about what we're going to order for food. Like the whole family, you probably have, if you have a big family and a lot of kids, no one wants to agree on what kind of food to get. And then we would just argue for such a while. Now it's like Sunday comes with no more argument. that I missed those times. But that was like kind of, not smart, but it was something that it was embarrassing and sad and pointless. But hopefully, I'm trying to figure out one-word answers, or I'll keep you here all night.
No, it's one of these things. I really hope that no one actually ever asks me these questions because
One day I'm going to do a podcast. I'll be interviewing you, and we're
there
going
you
to
go.
go through.
There you go. I'll tell you, I've been on two other people's podcasts recently, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversations I had because I didn't have to prepare anything. I was just able to speak off the cuff. It was really enjoyable. All right.
Well, I'd love to have one with you and your representative someday. Even if they don't win or win, it still would be great. So we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. All right, next one. What is your least favorite candy and why?
And these are tough. I don't eat a lot. I mean, here's one. My mother's favorite was Twizzler. She liked the brown kind, but I bought the other day the red one, and I just forgot I had it. So I took a bite the other day, and I broke my teeth, and that's why. It's if you leave Twizzlers too long, they'll become extremely hard, and it's not a good thing. And my son wanted one. I gave it, and then I was worried that he's going to lose his teeth, but he's still young, so it's okay.
That's funny. Well, yeah, don't bust your teeth on Twizzlers. They're not worth it.
That's the advertisement for the football game.
That's right. That's right. All right. Second to last question is what is the one question that you wish that I had asked you today?
It's tough. I love this part of the show the most because it brings a different aspect. Some of them I go on the same topic. So I think this segment is my favorite overall of everything. But just letting me spread the message.
Yeah.
But what would I have wanted you to ask? It's a tough one. I mean, honestly, I think you were so great that you hit everything.
You're going to give me a big head, and then everyone else is going to suffer from that. That's what's going to happen. That's so in
you know where to find me.
That's right. in respect to that, then the last of my 7 questions is, and this one I ask everybody is. And I'll preface this by saying I can't ask you this question, but what is the one question that you're glad that I didn't ask?
One that may turn this into a Barbara Walters interview that would make me cry. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know how tall you are. We're both big old guys. Sitting around is not like a bunch of guys that's crying is not. Maybe they do cry. I don't know, but it's hard because this stuff is very tough topics, and I'm glad we were able to smile. And I always want to end it on a positive note that yes, I lost my best friend, my mother, and there's days that have. Like one quick story, I know we got to head off, but Lionel Richie was yet another person they tortured me with as a young teen in the car from long drives from Manhattan to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But then I turned out I love him, but we were able to go see him, my wife and I. She didn't want to go, I dragged her. But so we saw him at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. But the second I got out, I looked at my phone and I really wish I could have called my mother because, she would have loved to have been there with us. But anytime we did something, I called my mother first, and she was so selfless. She always just wanted to be happy for me. And I remember, whether tough times or the good, she was the first person. She was always reliable there for me. And that's the one thing that, I'm glad you didn't ask, but kind of haunts me every day still till my last day. If I know that other people learn her story, like Michael J. Fox or you, and that means the world to me, and I won't stop fighting till we find a cure. So other families, caretakers, and individuals diagnosed never have to go through what my mother and I did, and that's really my main message. So thank you again.
Yeah, well, and I'll just say this that and thank you for coming on the show because I think that this subject in particular is one of the ones that. Again, it flies under the radar until it's actually recognized as being an issue, and my hope is that even from this, that people will do their own look, they'll do their own research, they'll visit your website Together for Sharon, and they will get a better understanding of what it is, not just that what Parkinson's is and what it does to people, but also recognize the effect that it has on those, the ripples that come off of these, that it touches everyone. Because if you know more about Parkinson's and you recognize some of the symptoms, we're not at the point yet where it's preventable, but we're going to get there. And as long as it's something that everyone is advocating for, we can get to that point. And like I said, I think that we live in a world with the technology that we're there. We just need that push from a medical aspect to find what it's going to take to prevent it and to potentially cure it. So again, the website is Together for Sharon. You can find links to it in the show notes. Dr. George Ackerman, I want to thank you very much, George, for being on with me, because I feel like from even as much as I know about Parkinson's and how it affects people, to actually speak to someone who has not gone through it but has been a participant in someone else's battle is such it's a unique position to have been in. And your perspective on it, I think, will resonate with people, that none of us are alone, and it's important to recognize that everyone is affected, even if you haven't been affected by it yet. Statistically, you're going to be affected. You're going to know somebody. You're going to have to be. You're going to be a caregiver to someone who's battling through Parkinson's. And it's important for everyone to recognize that until it gets the attention that it absolutely needs from our government and governments all over the world, it's going to take us having these talks and communicating about it and talking about the things that you went through and discussing the good times and the bad times and just understanding that they're all part of one life, and that there are so many of those one lives that it's going to take all of us. So George, I am so thankful that you came on the show with me. I know that this is difficult, but I am appreciative of you giving me your time to sit down and talk to me, so that my audience can hear your story and hear everything that you experienced, as well as the experience that your mother had, and just the closeness that you both shared that really led to you becoming such an advocate, and be that advocate. Continue to be that tool, because ultimately it's you, and it's Michael J. Fox, and it's everyone else out there that is really moving this in the right direction.
I really appreciate it. And even just to finish what your statement is, the National Plan to End Parkinson's disease, it might obviously change the world for individuals in the United States, but we're hoping other countries like Canada, UK, Africa, everyone can then take this plan that now is into law someday soon, and they can implement it in those countries, because they are also in need. And again, together, our voices are just so much stronger. Yeah,
absolutely. Dr. George Ackerman, thank you very much for being on the show. Again, remember, it is the website is togetherforsharon.com. You go check that out and get plenty of information and find ways that you can be an advocate to support the movement to finding a cure for Parkinson's disease. Dr. George, thank you very much again.
Thank you, and I'm going to find you on TikTok right after.
All right, that sounds good.
I hope to see you more.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the All About Nothing podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Barrett Gruber, or visit my Linktree /Barrett Eric Gruber. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available, including memberships that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. To find links to our social media, merchandise, and past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you can call and leave us a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our partner podcast. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons. Visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Me takes a deep dive down the rabbit hole in episodes of Welcome to Wonderland. Available on all the podcast platforms. Visit WTWLpod.com for details. As well, you can listen to the political and social conversation between Dr. Jamela Brooks and Bill Kimmler on Black, White, and Blue in the South. Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please like and hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media and copyright 2024, all rights reserved. This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is brought to you by Blank Canvas Brand. If you own a business, restaurant, or sports team and you're ready to shake things up with that new, unique image, you need to use Blank Canvas Brand. Blank Canvas specializes in brand identity, including logos and graphics for business cards, flyers, banners, and signs. Blank Canvas offers printing services to help with your clothing needs. Look, when it comes to talent and service, there is no one better. For more information, you can search Facebook for Blank Canvas, or you can email blankcanvas@theallaboutnothing.com. That's BLNKCANVS @theallaboutnothing.com. You can find links in the Friends of the Pod section of our website. Visit theallaboutnothing.com.